right. So 3.1 talks about the idea of graphing and functions. Okay, so y'all, for the first part in 3.1, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be plotting points. Okay, so y'all, we're going to plot points here, and every point, y'all, is going to have two coordinates. We're going to have an x coordinate, and we're going to have a y coordinate. Okay, so let's do this: an x coordinate and a y coordinate. The first coordinate, y'all, is going to tell me how to move left or right. And the second coordinate, y'all, is going to tell me how to move up or down. It's supposed to be an up arrow and a down arrow. It didn't look like that at all. So let's fix that. Still don't look like it, but you kind of get what I'm saying. So the first one tells me how to go left or right. Second one, y'all, tells me how to go up or down. So let's take a look here. And what we're going to do, y'all, when we have our coordinate plane, which is kind of like the grid that we have here, right? We have an x-axis and we have a y-axis, okay? So, y'all, the first part says, can we plot these points and then state which quadrant each point is in or in which axis each point lies? So what we really did here is we took that square and we kind of cut it up into four pieces. This is quadrant 1. That's quadrant 2. That's quadrant 3. And this one down here is quadrant 4. That's like in math, y'all, that's like the only time we use Roman numerals, right? We don't use Roman numerals a whole lot. But anywho, let's do this, y'all. Let's see if we can figure out these problems. Let's find the point A, which has the point 2, 3, or the coordinates 2, 3. Remember, y'all, the first number tells you how to move left or right. Second number tells you how to move up or down. So I'm going to start here in the middle, and I'm going to go to the right 2. And then from there, I'm going to go up to 3. And boom, there's my point A, right? So we went right 2 and then up 3. Let's take a look at the point B. The point B is the point it has coordinates -3 and 5. So y'all, remember, the first number tells me how to go left and right. So I'm going to go to the left 3. And then after that, since the second number is a +5, which way do you think I should go up? Or which way do you think we should go? Up 5 or down 5? Up 5, right? So right here, boom. So there's our point B, right? All right, let's see if we can figure out point C, y'all. Point C is 2 and a -4. So again, I'm going to go to the right 2, and then from here, I'm going to go down to 4, right? Sorry. And there's my point C, as in, do you see what I mean? And then my point D is a -3 and a -1. So again, y'all, the first number left to right, since it's a -3, I'm going to go to the left 3, and then we're going to go down 1. And there's my point D. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the point E, y'all. Point E is 0 and 2. Since the first number tells me how to go left and right, and since that first number is a 0, y'all, we're not going to go left or right. We're going to chill out in the middle, and then we're going to go up to 2. And there's my point E. Okay. And then finally, y'all, we got point F. Point F is -4 and 0. So again, what I'm going to do here, y'all, I'm going to go, first number is -4. I'm going to go to the left -4, but then we're just going to hang out right there. And there's our point F, right? Okay, so y'all, in addition to plotting those points, it was also asking me which quadrant or in which axis each point lies. So look, y'all, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, the x-axis, and boom, the y-axis. And so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to take a look and I say, okay, are any points in quadrant 1? Yeah, look, A is in quadrant 1. Okay. Are any points in quadrant 2? Looks like B, right? Are any points in the third quadrant? Looks like D is in dog. How many in the fourth? Looks like C. Okay. Now remember, y'all, this right here, this line right here is the x-axis. Oh, look, point F happened to be on the x-axis, right? And then this line right here is my y-axis. And if you notice, point E happened to be on my y-axis, right? Okay, so that's how we plot points. Yo, one of the things we're going to do in the next problem, the points are going to be plotted. What we're going to try to do, we're going to try to find the coordinates of them, okay? So look, let's scroll down to here. I'm going to do a quick zoom, zoom, zoom. All right, and y'all, what I'm going to do here, I want to see if we can find the coordinates of those points. So, y'all, if we look at the point A, look where the point A is. It's right in the middle. So we didn't go to the left or the right, and we didn't go up and down. Anybody know what the coordinates of the point A would be? What do you think? If we're right showing out in the middle. Anyone know? What do you think it would be? What do you think? Zero, right? Zero and what? 0 and 0, right? Okay, cool. Let's do part B, y'all. Now, y'all, I'm not trying to trick you with part B. We're right in the middle between 3 and 4. So we're right in the middle between 3 and 4. Everyone agree? 3.5? Okay, did we go up or down? No, right? So we're going to be again at 0. Okay, let's take a look at the point C. Now remember, y'all, when we're doing our points, the first number tells me how to go left and right, and the second number tells me how to go up and down. So from the middle, it looks like we went to what? To 3. And then from 3, it looks like we went up to 2. So we got to make sure that we go in the order, right? So we can't put 2, 3. That'd be a different point. It's got to be 3, 2. Okay. Let's look at the coordinates for point D. D is in dog. Okay. Let's take a look. So look, y'all, here's D right over there. So we went to the left. Looks like we went to the left 1 space. So that's a -1. And then we went up to 3. Okay. Anybody got an idea for the point for E? What are the coordinates for the point E? -2 and what? -2? Awesome. Very good. Okay. Let's take a look at F, y'all. F is right over here. Okay. It's right in the middle, so we didn't go to the left or right. So my first number is going to be 0. But then we went down. We only went down 1 spot, y'all. So -1, right? E, F, what else we got? We got G, right? G comes next. Okay. All right. So remember, y'all, we're going to go to the right first. And it looks like we go to the right 2 spaces. And then it looks like we go down to -1. Okay. All right. So, y'all, the idea here is if you can plot points, or if you're given a point, can you find the coordinate? Then you're pretty good at plotting points. Okay. Just want to make sure we know how to go back and forth and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at the next problem here, y'all. And in the next problem, this is my mistake, y'all. I didn't put any directions on this one. And so I'm going to write them right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to graph this guy. Okay. So y'all, I'm going to show you how we're going to graph this guy here. We're going to do a couple of things. Okay. Step number 1, y'all. If you notice, they gave me a 0 here and there's nothing in the second spot. What this is telling me, y'all, is that the number X is going to be 0, and we're going to try to figure out what the number Y is going to be. The way we're going to do that, y'all, is we're going to take our equation Y equals X minus 4, which is this equation right there. And where we have the letter X, we're going to plug in the number 0. So 0 minus 4, okay? Now remember, y'all, the other day when we were here, we talked about positive numbers, negative numbers. Positives numbers, how much money I have. Negatives, how much money I owe. I have no money. And I owe you $4. Well, ¿sabes qué? I still owe you $4, right? So right here, y'all, -4. And inside this little box right here, y'all, I'm going to write a -4. All right, let's do step number 2. Step number 2, y'all, is going to be real similar to step number 1. We're going to go like this, 2, blank. Remember what that means? That means that X is 2 we're gonna try to figure out what the y number is, okay? So I'm gonna take my equation again, y equals x minus 4, and now where we have the letter x, y'all, I'm gonna plug in the number 2. 2 minus 4. Again, let's think about what that means. This is a positive 2. Y'all, I have $2, but I owe you 4. And if I give you the $2 that I have, I still owe you 2. So that's a negative 2. So I'm going to come back over here, and right there, I'm going to write a negative 2. Okay, I'm going to do this a third time, y'all. Okay, we're going to go like this. We're going to go 3. Okay, let's take a look. So we have 4 comma blank. So again, that means that x is 4, and we want to figure out what y is going to be equal to. So y'all, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go y equals x minus 4, and I'm going to plug in the x equals 4. So y equals 4 minus 4. What's 4 minus 4? Anyone know? Oh, you know, it's 0, right? Boom, 0, my hero. So right here, y'all, I'm going to put a 0. Okay, now that we have that, y'all, we're going to go ahead and draw those points. So look, y'all, the first point we had was 0 and negative 4. 0, negative 4 says, hey, from the middle, don't go left and right, but then go down to a negative 4. The next point we have, y'all, is 2 and negative 2. That means we're going to go to the right 2, and then we're going to go down to negative 2. And then the third point we have, y'all, is the point 4 and 0. So we're going to go to the right 4, and then we're going to stay right there. And y'all, if you notice, we got ourselves a line. And there's my line. Okay. All right. So y'all, for this problem here, they gave us some pieces of information. They gave us an equation, and they told us what the x number was. Why did they tell me that? Because it said, look, the first number is 0. Hey, that means x is 0. Let's plug it in. Let's see what we're going to get for y. And then we did it again with 2, and then we did it again with 4. Okay. Are we doing okay so far? Is this working? All right, just checking, everybody. Y'all, we're going to try this one here. Okay. Now, what I want you to notice, y'all, is different from this problem compared to the one we did before. In the one we did before, they gave us some numbers for x, okay? Here, y'all, they're not giving me any numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to make up our own. And it doesn't matter what numbers you pick, okay? Now, y'all, the one thing I want to say, it doesn't matter what numbers you pick, and it doesn't. But I want you to look at the picture that I have up here, y'all. Look at my picture. And if I look at the numbers that I'm going to be picking, y'all, I'm going to be picking numbers for x. And I want you to look at my graph that I have here. And on the x, it goes up to 5. I guess 6 over here, right? And I guess negative 6 over here. So you might say, you know what? My favorite number is 17. But if you're going to go to 17, man, you're going to be drawn all the way out there. You see what I'm saying? So pick numbers, y'all, that are small. Okay, so look, let's do this. We're going to pick some really, really, really small numbers. Negative 1, okay, 0, positive 1. Okay, let's just do this. So guys, those numbers, I just pulled them out of the air. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's do this. Let's do step number 1, y'all. Step number 1. We know that x is negative 1. We're going to try to figure out, we're going to try to figure out what y is, okay? So look, my equation, y'all, is y equals negative 3x plus 2. And remember, y'all, where the x number used to be, I'm now going to put a negative 1. Anybody know what a negative 3 times a negative 1 is? Negative times negative is, What do you think? Positive, right? Look, y'all, positive 3. What's 3 plus 2? Oh, it's just 5. Look, there's a 5 right there. Okay, step number 2. Let's do step number 2. X is now the number 0. We're going to figure out what y is. Okay. So y equals negative 3x plus 2. So negative 3 times 0 plus 2. Okay. Let's see. 3 times 0 is still 0. And 0 plus 2, y'all, that's still a 2. Now, I'm going to come back one more time. I'm going to do this a third time, y'all. Let's see. The other number we picked was x equals 1. Okay. So I'm going to write y equals negative 3x plus 2. And we're going to go negative 3 times 1 plus 2. Okay. Let's see. Negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. And negative 3 plus 2, y'all, that's a negative 1. Again, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot my numbers, okay? So look, when x is negative 1, when x is negative 1, we got a positive 5, so I'm going to go up. Sorry, it's too far that way. Boom. Negative 1, positive 5, boom, right there. Okay. The next one we got is 0 and 2. 0 and 2 is going to be, boom, right there. And then 1 and negative 1, y'all, is going to be right there. And I'm going to do my best, boom, to connect my dots. And I'm done. Okay. Now, y'all, one thing I want to mention here, when we're doing this part, okay, when we're going through this thing here, the numbers that you pick for x and for y, they're not really important. I picked negative 1, 0, and 1. And sometimes people ask you, Omar, can I always pick negative 1, 0, and 1? You can always pick negative 1, 0, and 1. It won't always be the easiest numbers, but you can definitely pick them. But if you wanted to pick 2 instead of 1, you could pick 2 instead of 1. Guys, real quick, you don't have to write this part down, but I want to show you guys something. I'm going to come back over here. I'm just going to do this on the side where I got some room, okay? And remember, our problem looked like this, negative 3x plus 2. And suppose the number I would have picked, or suppose you would have picked x equals 2. Would you still get that same line, okay? Notice what would happen, y'all. We would take negative 3 times 2 plus 2. And negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. And negative 6 plus 2, y'all, would be a minus 4, okay? So if we would have picked the number 2, we would have got the point 2 and negative 4. Y'all, if I scroll back over here, okay, if I scroll back over here, remember the point we just said we got 2 and negative 4? Look, here's 2, here's negative 4. Isn't that point still on the line? It's still on the line, right? So what points do you pick? You can pick any numbers you want. Again, y'all, I keep it small, okay? I keep it small just so that you can actually draw the line. But what numbers you pick, it's not important. So instead of a 1, if you would have picked a 2, I wouldn't have marked that point, but we would have marked that one, and it's still the same one. Okay. All right. Y'all, the next one here in my list, and I'm sure you noticed this too. The first thing we notice about this problem, y'all, is that there is a fraction in front of our x. Okay, y'all, one of the things I want to mention, when you're drawing these lines and you're plotting these points, you don't need a lot of points, okay? For a line, y'all, you really only need 2, okay? So I'm going to show you guys something. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to make my own chart with x and with y. Y'all, one of the numbers that I'm always going to pick is 0. And the reason I'm going to pick 0, 0 is a really, really easy number to plug in, okay? Let's plug in 0, and then we'll pick another point, okay? So look, step number 1, x is 0. What are we going to get for y? I don't know. y equals 1/3 times 0. Anybody know what happens when you multiply it by 0? What do we get? Anyone know? 0. Anytime you multiply by 0, guys, you get 0. That's why I'm going to plug that number in, because that's going to be real easy. Okay, where would I find the point 0, 0 on my picture? Anyone know? Wouldn't it be, what, right in the middle? Boom, there's 1 point already. Y'all, we only need to do one more. Okay, when you have a fraction, y'all, means we're going to multiply the top number, but we're going to divide the bottom number. So we're going to be dividing by 3. So y'all, you know what number I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick numbers that I know I can divide by 3. Let me show you what's going to happen when we do step number 2. Look, x equals 3. What's y going to be equal to? Look, y'all, I'm going to put 1/3, because there's a 1/3 right here. Now, when I put my number 3 in for the x, y'all, I'm going to write that 3 as 3 over 1. Okay. Now, if you remember, how do we multiply fractions? Boom, we go straight across. 1 times 3, 3. 3 times 1, still 3. What's 3 divided by 3? It's 1. Okay. Where would I find the point 3 and 1? Let's go to the right 3. Let's go up 1. Boom. And there we go. Now, y'all, I told you, when you're doing this here, you really only need 2 points. Let me show you guys. Look, I'm going to start drawing my line. Boom, 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 boom. There's my line. Okay. I only really need 2 points. Y'all, again, just so that you know, right? I told you, you got to pick numbers you can divide by 3, because the bottom number is a 3. So suppose you would have said, hey, Omar, what happens if I would have picked 6? Look what would have happened, y'all. We would have had 1/3. Now, when I plug in this number 6, y'all, I'm going to write it as 6 over 1. Okay. 1 times 6 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. Does anybody know what is 6 divided by 3? How many times 3 go into 6? Nice and neat. 2, right? 2. Thank you. Look, y'all. 6, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. Wouldn't it have been that point right there? And we would have still been on the same line? Yes, right? So again, whatever the denominator is, y'all, if I have a fraction, if my denominator is 4, I'm going to pick numbers I can divide by 4. If my denominator is 2, I'm going to pick even numbers I can divide by 2. If my denominator is a 5, I'm going to pick numbers I can divide by 5. Okay? But those are the kind of numbers I'm going to pick. And I'm not going to worry about the numerator. The numerator just means you're going to take your number and multiply it by whatever the numerator is, but then you're going to divide by the bottom one. Okay? All right. Y'all, let's scroll down a little further. And, oops. Y'all, for this next problem here, it says, let f of x equals negative 3x plus 4. We want to find f of 0, and then we're going to find f of negative 5. Okay, y'all, just like we've been doing before, okay, this here is what we call a function, okay? And y'all, what I'm going to do here is we're going to do a little stare and compare, okay? I'm going to look at this part right here, and I'm going to look at this part right here. And I'm going to say, hey, you know what I notice is different? Right here, I have an x. But right here, y'all, I have a 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this problem, and everywhere I have the letter x, I'm going to put a 0. Negative 3 times 0 plus 4. Okay. Anybody know what's negative 3 times 0? What do we say happens when we multiply by 0? What do we get? 0, right? Okay. 0 plus 4, y'all. Boom. Just 4. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with this part right here. Whatever number I have on the inside, y'all, is telling me that's the number you're going to plug in for x. So look, we're going to go negative 3 times negative 5 plus 4. Anybody know what's negative 3 times negative 5? 15, right? Very good. And 15 plus 4, y'all, should just be 19. All righty. Y'all, I'm going to scroll down a little bit further in my list. And again, it says to evaluate the function at the given value of the variable. Okay, so y'all, let's go really slow here. Here's my function, okay? Part A says, can we find f of 4? All this means, y'all, is that everywhere I have the letter x, I'm going to put the number 4. So the first thing I see is a 4, and then where my x used to be, y'all, I'm drawing parentheses. I'm going to put my number 4 in there. I'm going to put a square because there's a square right next to it. And then I'm going to put a plus 5 right next to it. I'm going to put parentheses. I'm going to put my number 4 right there. And then I'm going to put a plus 2. Okay? Now, y'all, we talked about order of operations before, right? We got to do our exponents. Let's see, 4 squared. Y'all, 4 squared is 4 times 4. That's 16. I'm going to go ahead and multiply those guys right next to each other. 5 times 4, 20. And I'm going to add 2 to that. Then I'm going to multiply these guys here. So let me get my calculator. Let's figure out what's 4 times 16. Calculator, boom, here we go. 4 times 16, 64. Plus, look, we can add those guys together. That's 22. And 64 plus 22, y'all, 86, right? All right, so for part A, my answer is, boom, 86. Okay. Oops, sorry. Let's do part B, and let's see if we can figure out part B. Part B all says, can we find f of negative 3? Okay, I'm going to write down my 4 because there's a 4 in front, right? Now, again, y'all, where I had my x, I'm going to open up parentheses. Negative 3 squared plus 5 times negative 3 plus 2. We're going to go slow here, y'all. Remember what negative 3 squared means. Negative 3 squared means negative 3 times another negative 3, and a negative times a negative is a positive 9. Okay. 5 times a negative 3, y'all, should be a minus 15. And I got a plus 2. Okay. I'm going to do my order of operations, y'all. I'm going to multiply. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay. And then I'm just going to go left to right, y'all. Look, 36 minus 15. 36 minus 15 should be something like 21. And 21 plus 2, y'all, should be something like 23. Y'all, before I go on, what I want you to notice about these 2 problems that we just did is that from one line to the next, y'all, I'm pretty much doing one step, right? So from here to here, we squared the negative 3, we got a 9. We went ahead and multiplied that to give me a negative 15 and then the 2. Then we multiplied, we got our 36, and then we did one step. 36 minus 15, 21. And then 21 plus 2, 23. Y'all, I can't go from here to there like in one step. It just doesn't work, okay? So the one thing I'd always tell my students, write it down, y'all. Write it down. If you're trying to do a bunch of stuff in your head without writing it down, that's when we start to make mistakes, okay? So write it down. Okay. Y'all, for the next problem, this problem here is just kind of like the first one or the second problem we did earlier in class today. We're going to go ahead and graph this function, okay? Notice again, y'all, in this problem, they gave us a table. They gave us numbers for x. We're going to figure out what the y numbers are going to be, okay? So, y'all, first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to do step number 1. We know that x is 0. We're going to try to find the y value, okay? Y'all, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to come back to my problem. And everywhere we have an x, we're going to put the number 0. So look, y'all, f of 0 is going to be 3 times 0 minus 2. Okay, we already said 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2, y'all, negative 2. So that's going to be my y number, okay? When I'm plugging in the 0 for the x, whatever answer I get, y'all, that's actually going to be my y value. Look, let's do step number 2. Step number 2, x equals 1. What is the y number we're going to get? Okay. So y'all, I'm going to try to find f of 1. So I'm going to come back to my function right here. 3 times 1 minus 2. Okay. 3 times 1 is still 3. And 3 minus 2, y'all, is just 1. So look, I'm going to put a 1 right there. Boom. Step number 3, y'all. We know now that x is 2. Okay, x is 2. What is the value of y? I don't know. We're going to find it. Okay. So we're going to come back here. We're going to find f of 2. Okay, so we're going to write this out, y'all. 3 times 2 minus 2. Anybody know what 3 times 2 is? 6. Very good. And finally, y'all, 6 minus 2, boom, that's just going to be 4. So look, let's go ahead and draw those points. The first point, y'all, 0 and negative 2. Remember, the first number is my x, so we're not going to go left and right, but we are going to go down to negative 2. Okay. 1 and 1 means we're going to go right 1 and up 1, so right there. And then 2 and 4 means we're going to go right 2 and up to 4 right there. And boom, there is our line. Okay. There's our graph. Y'all, for these problems here, I usually call these problems plug and shove, because you're taking those numbers for x, you're plugging them in everywhere you have an x in your problem, and the number you're coming up with is really your y number. Okay. All right, so far, this making sense? We're good? Okay, just check. Okay, so y'all, when we have functions, we're not going to worry about domain and range, but when we have functions, there's something called the vertical line test. So y'all, just in case you're not certain, a vertical line is a line that goes up and down, okay? What we want to know is if we have a graph, does that graph represent a function? Okay, so the way we do this, y'all, we're going to draw a vertical line. We're going to draw a line that goes up and down in that graph. Okay, there it is. There's my green line. The vertical line test says if the vertical line hits the graph more than one time, it's not a function. How many times did we intersect that line? Just one time, right? I drew the line, I hit it once. Hey, it was only one time, y'all. Then what we have is a function, okay? But now, if I come to my second picture, y'all, and I draw this line right here, if you notice on this one, y'all, I happen to hit this line twice. This is not a function, okay? It's not a function because that vertical line, y'all, hit it more than once. Sometimes people will ask me, Omar, what happens if you draw that line right there where you barely touched it? That's okay. As long as we can find one line that messes it up, it's not going to be a function. Okay. And finally, I got one more here, y'all. Look, we're going to draw a line going straight up and down. Only hit it once. Again, we have what's called a function, okay? So again, y'all, we're just looking at the graph and we're trying to determine whether or not this is a function. And the way we do it is we just draw that vertical line. All right, let me scroll down a little bit further in my list. Okay, So y'all, for this next problem here, I'm going to read through the question and we're going to see if we can figure out what's going on here. And it says a football is thrown by a quarterback to a receiver. The points in the figure show the height of the football in feet above the ground in terms of the distance in yards from the quarterback. Okay, so before I do anything else, y'all, my number's going up and down. This is the football height in feet above the ground. Okay, and this is the distance the football travels from the quarterback. So going that way and the ball goes up, how high is the ball, right? So if I were to think about this right here, y'all, right before the quarterback throws the ball, he's holding the ball. If this is 4 and this is 6, what number do you think would be right in the middle? 5. He's holding that ball 5 feet up in the air, right before he throws it. Okay. When he throws that football, let's see, this is 40, this is 48. Y'all agree that'd probably be 44? Right, so they're going by 4s. So this is 52. This right here is 60. So like it goes a little bit more than 60 yards going down, right? Okay, what we want to do is we want to see, can we find the coordinates of the point A? Okay, so look, y'all, if that right here is 0 and that's 8, do you guys agree that have to be 4? Okay, that's 4. Look, y'all, we got 2, we got 4, we got 6, we got 8. What number do you think would be right there in the middle between 6 and 8? Anybody know? Between 6 and 8? 7. Boom. Okay, so let's take a look, y'all. If we wanted to find the coordinates of the point A, remember, first X, then Y. I would say it looks like it's about 4, 7, right? Now, let's see what that means. The ball has traveled a distance of 4, and this distance here, y'all, is in yards, right? And then it's got a height of 7, and that distance is being measured in feet. Okay, and that's all we're trying to do for that first problem. Oops, sorry. That's all we're trying to do for that first problem is just figure out what the coordinates mean. Okay. Now let's look at the next problem. Okay, let's see. So similar type question here, y'all. A football is thrown by a quarterback to receiver. The points in the figure show the height of the football, again in feet, in terms of above the ground, in terms of distance, yards from the quarterback. Estimate the coordinates of point D. Okay, so look, y'all, boom, that is point D right there. Let's go down, Charlie Brown. All right, that looks like the X value is 48. Okay, y'all, look, if this here is 8, that's got to be 9. What number would you guess that to be? If it's a little bit above 9 but smaller than 10, what would you guess it to be? 9.5. That sounds good to me. Okay. 48. So remember, y'all, remember what this means. This means it's traveled 48 yards and it's 9.5 feet up in the air, right? All right, I'm going to scroll down a little further in my list. And let's take a look here. It says, again, same type of problem, right? We have a football is thrown by a quarterback to receiver. The points, again, show the height of the football in feet above the ground. Uses information. Okay, what is the football's maximum height? Y'all, we want to know how high did that football get? So, y'all, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to zoom in here, okay? I want to figure out that number right there. Does that number look like it's maybe right above what? Right above 12? Right? So y'all, if it's right above 12, look what they're telling me. Round to the nearest 10th. I might put 12. Y'all, I might put 12.1, something like that, right? I know it's not 13. I know that for sure. And it's not even more than halfway up. So I would probably guess anywhere 12 or 12.1. Y'all, when you're doing your homework, my lab has this thing called a tolerance. So it would take an answer like 12, or it would take 12.1, maybe 12.2. It's not going to take 12.5, right? That's too much. Okay. Now we want to know how far did it go when it got to that height. So y'all, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this point right here. I'm going to go straight down. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit better. And oops, do this. Okay. Because I want to make sure that I can get that height where I need for it to be. So as I'm looking at this, it's not actually at 8. It's just a little bit more than 8. And actually that number there would be 7. So I don't know, what would you guess? 7.5? 7.5 yards, right? Something like that. And that's all that I'm doing here, okay? So again, y'all, as you're going through your homework problems, they're going to be similar to the questions that we did, right? So that right there, y'all, is 3.2. What I want to kind of show you guys real quick, let me stop recording this, but